All right, welcome back. This is episode 2 of the Sport Management Office Hours. I'm Nick Zoroya,
And I'm Brandon Podgorski. Welcome to the show.
and this week we are welcomed by Dr. Joshua Greer from Cumberland University, and it's a very special topic for us. We kind of hinted at it last week. We're going to be talking about experiential learning opportunities, getting out into the real world and getting this experience for these students. And Dr. Greer, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm really excited to be here, and hopefully, I can provide some insight for other universities to take part of experiential learning.
Perfect, perfect. And before we get too deep into our main topics, why don't you tell us, you just started a new position. So
Yeah,
why don't you tell us where you're at, what you're doing, and then maybe a little bit about where you've been along the way.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. So I'm currently at Cumberland University, which is in Lebanon, Tennessee. Or if you understand Tennessee, Nashville is now grown, and so they call it East Nashville. But we're about 25 minutes from downtown, and so close to so many awesome sport organizations that are nearby. But I've started. This is my 11th year in higher education, and I'm excited to be here at Cumberland. I'm excited to be here in Middle Tennessee. But before that, I had stops at University of Tennessee at Martin, and then Bethel University in Northwest Tennessee. Both great institutions, but as we learn and grow, we want to expand. And I was hired here to help guide the students for an experiential learning type of program. They want to invest and partner with a type of learning that I've been able to implement at other institutions.
Great. And so, on social media, I've picked up on the fact that you're very proud of your Super Bowl project.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so, and that might not be the best way to describe it, but
No.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'll let you kind of walk us through this because I think from an event management standpoint, right? The Super Bowl is quite literally the Super Bowl of event management, along with maybe the Olympics and the World Cup.
yeah, for
So,
sure.
so as far as domestically, Super Bowl that's the pinnacle, right? So,
Yeah.
why don't you talk us about how you've gotten, or tell us about your program, what it looks like, and then maybe how you've gotten to the point where you can offer this to your students.
Yeah, so I think it's key to be able to provide real world experiences for our students. That could be site visits, as we spoke off camera, but really having the hands on experience and understanding that it's not just going to an event and being able to watch it. That's the number one thing I've had to like sell students. Like when we work the Super Bowl and we get to work game day, guess what? We may be there at 2:30 a.m. to do media check-in. And after that, we may have to usher people to their seats. It's not all glory as it may sound. But this is the type of things that we do logistically whenever we do major sporting events. Hopefully in 2028, we will be at the Olympics working it in Los Angeles. That'd be fantastic. But until then, our major event is the Super Bowl, and we've been able to do it. I've been thankful. This is my seventh group that I've been able to lead to the NFL Super Bowl, and it is the Super Bowl of events. It is a major event. We do all sorts of things leading up to the event. We typically are there for an extent of 7 days. And we do fan experience, NFL alumni house. We've also done some sort of like trying to make sure that we can get certain people to certain places without being detected. And so if you have celebrities of some sort that need to get to certain places, we've had students be drivers. We've had students stand in front of restrooms and point them in the right direction. You never can tell because the event changes. But as long as they know that they're going to be working 8 to 12 hours a day. And this experience has been paid for the last several years, but a lot of these experiences are not. When you work the Final Four, when you work the college football national championship, those are unpaid experiences, but we treat them all the same. You treat it as work. You go in and you work hard. And you kind of have that Chick-fil-A personality. That's what we sell. It's always my pleasure, even if you do not agree with maybe the circumstance, you make sure that you just carry it out. You're all business. And when we get back to the hotel or get back to the van, we can discuss what went right, what went wrong, what would you have done differently? And it's really cool to kind of see how people reflect on those situations. And, other than networking and kind of seeing scenes, these events are eye-opening for students to see if they even want to work in this field. This field is a lot of hours, but it's very rewarding if you enjoy what you do.
So that was something I wanted to follow up with. When you're dealing with students before you go to these opportunities, and whether they're freshmen or
Yeah.
upperclassmen, but certainly underclassmen, what's the perception beforehand? And then what is it afterwards? Because all of us talk until we're
Mhm.
blue in the face about
Yeah.
what you just said. Like, listen,
Yeah.
I worked in sports for a long time.
Yeah.
I didn't see any games. I
Yeah.
was working,
Yes.
So what is their experience afterwards? And then obviously, what do you think they're talking about beforehand?
Um, I love every city that I've ever visited. In fact, I just got back from the NFL draft in Detroit. And it was fantastic. And Detroit has bounced back, and I'm so happy for the city. And I'm actually going to go on a vacation to take my wife because she's never been to Detroit. It's fantastic. But the worst experience that we've had was in Cleveland for the draft, and it was raining and pouring and cold and snow. And one day was beautiful, went to a baseball game, got to enjoy the day, and the next day it was miserable. And I've had students tell me 5 years later, however many years it's been since Cleveland's hosted the draft, that was their greatest experience. They enjoyed that toughness, and so therefore it's kind of eye opening to kind of see perception versus reality of what they think will take place and then what exactly takes place. That was my least favorite because I'm old and I don't like to be cold.
Amen.
But at the end of the day, they enjoyed it so much because they bonded over that struggle. So it is interesting to kind of see. I do not paint a pretty picture. I tell them they're going to be working. I tell them that this experience is going to be tough. I tell them that they may be on their feet 8 to 12 hours, depending on the situation. And when COVID happened and we were working the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, we worked 17 hours that day, and it was
Mm.
unpaid. It was still an unpaid position at that time. But I had a friend who was on the host committee that said, Josh, you do not have to do this, but we had some people call in. And if your group would be willing to, we have extra hours worth of shifts. I looked at them, they agreed, and they were like rock stars. We worked all the way into halftime, and we got back to, we didn't see any of the game. We left at halftime. We could have stayed and kind of observed the situation, but we're so wore out. We went home and we crashed. We went right to sleep. I don't even know what happened in that game. I couldn't tell you one thing. I haven't even seen the replays on NFL Network. I don't know. That day was a very hard and difficult day, but it was very rewarding as well.
Well, it takes so much to make the magic happen in games, and we talk about it with our students. What you see on the field is maybe like 15% of what happens in the
Yes.
actual industry. I mean, somebody has to get into the seats, and somebody has to sell those tickets, and somebody has to market. I mean, there's just all those things. And part of that is volunteering. And we talked a little bit about it in our first episode, how sometimes I think we kind of get in our heads, or students get in their heads, like, I've got to have a job or I've got an internship, and that's got to be my experience. But there's great value in volunteering because there's your experience right there, and nobody turns down free help. So how have you been able to get these opportunities with the Super Bowl?
Yeah. So I blanket phone calls and cold calling, to be honest, cold calling and emails and trying to see if we could do anything at all, we'd volunteer. I even told them the very first year, I believe, that I took a group on my own was the Miami Super Bowl. And I told them, I was like, I don't care, whatever, we can work 2 a.m. shifts. And they did. They put us at the 2:30 a.m. shift. We were there on game day. I said, we don't have to work game day. I want them to be able to see what a major sporting event looks like. And I want them to understand how much time and effort goes into these events. And they took me on it. We worked 45 hours that week. We typically work 32 to 40 hours a week. But that week, we worked and we grind. And the very next year, we got a phone call. Hey, Josh, we'd love to have your group back. They worked really hard. We're very thankful for them. And so it just continues to go out. But different people have different ways of reaching out, and typically they know someone with the city host committee, and that's how they get involved. And that's typically what I do as well. I've had a few universities reach out to me and they're like, hey, it doesn't have to be the Super Bowl, but we want to work the Final Four in San Antonio. Then you call someone, you're like, hey, I know someone in San Antonio. Is there any way that they can volunteer or do whatever they need to do? It could be a a short-term paid position as well, contracted. So it is, it just takes a lot of legwork up front. What we try to do is provide these opportunities with no financial barriers. So therefore, we fundraise. We have a partnership with the Tennessee Titans, and I'm very thankful for that. Where we sell tickets, and they give us $10. They sell a discounted ticket. They give us a link, and we get $10 per ticket. And so far for this season, even though I love the Tennessee Titans, you can see behind me, they gave me this jersey, but I'm a huge Titans fan. We're not playing very well. We may be that number one overall pick, top five for sure, but we've sold 800 tickets so far. So we're at $8,000 so far. And which, as long as you're okay with staying 25 minutes outside of the city, you can find $50 a night hotels, and you can stick multiple people in there. It can be cost effective. I've never spent more than $8,000, and that was get to Vegas or get to LA to send a group of 10 or 12. You can do it affordable. And so typically I'll have, once we go through the process of an interview process, which I look at, are you a sport management major? You have to be. If not, then potentially a minor if we don't have enough volunteers. But I think you need to be in the field. Some schools, they send whoever's willing to spend the money, and that's okay. That's up to them. That's a prerogative. You get point allocations for your classification. So if you're a senior, you're getting 4 points. You're a junior, you get 3 points, and so on and so forth. Your GPA matters, but it's 1 point per. We know that as long as you're able to graduate, you can typically find a job, and that GPA matters for going into graduate school eventually down the line. Volunteerism, what are you doing on your own? Those things are important. You cannot just follow up on what I'm doing, but what are you doing to better yourself as well? Because you're part of the three-legged chair, right? Without you, without those experiences, that chair will fall over. And why do you want to do this? How will this help? And those are things that we ask. And this year we're blessed. This is my very first year here. So I don't know these students. And I went through and I interviewed 41 students in a week period, and was able to select 12 to go to this year's Super Bowl. But I make sure to let them know, hey, you may not see a second of the game. You may not even know who was playing, and you may be working, your butt off. But how will this make you better? It'll make you better because you networked, you're able to gain experience in the field, and then hopefully you are able to understand what it takes to pull off, in my opinion, the largest sporting event in the United States.
Absolutely. So one follow-up question, I want to throw it back over to Nick, but you're talking about you interview the students, and this is something my last institution I was at was small D3 up in Northern Indiana. So a lot of our admissions was athletics driven.
Yeah,
and it's
sure.
hard to get those students away from their sport, understandably so, even though we all know your last D3 game is the last sport you will ever play, and then you better be ready for the next 60 years of your career. So it was hard to try to find students who would be engaged in that. But I like what you're doing there at Cumberland, and I know at Bethel before, where you're interviewing the students and you're kind of ranking them on a point system. Did you find that as freshmen, that helped to kind of get them engaged and acted as a nice carrot on the stick for this potential opportunity? Because I love the idea.
No, yeah, most certainly did. And the upperclassmen were able to share their experiences and why it was important as well. But from year one, I actually have two boys. I'm a proud father of two boys, but one's in college right now. He's at USC. He actually applied for University of Michigan, didn't get in, but got a full ride to USC. It's such a weird thing, admissions. But regardless, he's in computer and electrical engineer, but regardless of the field, you want to make sure that you're building blocks. So what did you do your first year? How did you grow in your second year? What are you going to do to improve on your third year? And then eventually you graduate. I like to see a full picture. And I've had people, the Memphis Grizzlies, Tennessee Titans, some other organizations in Tennessee, they'll call and they'll say, what am I not seeing on their resume? Why should I hire this person? And I'll tell them, why I feel like that person may be a good fit for your organization. But it takes these different experiences. I'm so thankful for building a relationship with Lane Wakefield with Baylor University. He does an awesome job with his S3, I believe is what it's called, but the National Sports Sales Competition. Oh my goodness, every student that goes there and they work their butt off to prepare to go to these events, they get job offers. They may not accept them. They may not want to move to LA or New York, but they're getting job offers. And he's doing digital marketing. Last year, I wanted to take a group of students, but it was very last minute for me. Corporate sponsorships and sales, ticket sales, and analytics. I took some students. I had a math professor. I am not an analytics guy. If you need help in that area, please call someone else. I will point you in the right direction, but it is not towards me. And they competed, and they were able to learn to see what it takes to be in that field. But no, all of these experiences are important. But you can't just say, "Hey, feed me, feed me." You got to work for your food as well.
Just a real funny story about the analytics competition. I took a student there last year, and I'm the same way. I'm a sport management guy, and they had him in rooms and you're competing against like 3 other people. And so I'm talking to the professor of one of the people he's competing against, and this guy's at the University of Iowa. He's worked with pro sports teams. He's written books and all this. He's got a PhD in mathematics. I look over my student, Drew, and I just said, "You're screwed, man. Like, let's just enjoy the next couple days and we'll go from there." So,
for sure.
No, but Lane does a great job.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. And I wanted to pivot back because little do you know, we talked about that exact thing, the building block idea last episode. And that was our advice, because at least here in our intro class, we end this semester with a week-long, what does your career look like in sports? What are the options? All of these things. And we also have a 4-year plan of, and it's pretty broad, right? Because you can't have one for every single person that's just ready to go. But we say freshman year, volunteer, maybe find an internship your freshman summer, but volunteer, work in the field, something, coach, whatever it might be, camp. Sophomore year, volunteer again, definitely get your first internship for that next summer. Junior year, okay, do all of that, and now go to it, maybe a job fair. Start networking. So it's funny, the building block thing is so true, because you cannot wait till you're a senior, especially you and I are at NAI institutions. We're like 95% athlete driven. So they don't have the time to wait, because guess what? They keep, I'm sure your advising looks similar to mine. A lot of stuff gets kicked later and later. And then all of a sudden, all the hard stuff is senior year. Or in that 11th semester or that 9th semester. And you're like, oh, wow, you don't have time to do anything. I understand. Or they have to work. And it's like, all right, well, we have to prioritize. So all that makes sense. And I think, you're talking to 2 people that are passionate about ticket sales. We also mentioned that last week. So it looks like that Lane Wakefield is somebody we're going to have on eventually, because
you will have to.
It is my dream to get a group. We do ticket sales. We actually created a course here. Just about that. And we work with the Lions and USA Hockey and a couple other people, but it's my goal to turn that into, let's identify some people that want to go to this competition. And let's go. I know there's a virtual version. It's like the first step, right? But like, I would love to get to Atlanta, because like you said, if you're just there in the room and you try and you're doing something well, you'll get attention.
100%.
How often does that happen in our field? So
no.
So along that same vein, I appreciate all your thoughts about the learning experience and how to set that up and all the legwork. It's not rocket science, right? It's just, people wonder, why haven't I gotten a call to send my students there? It's because that's not how that works. Like, you're going to have to make the call. Like for me, I'm going to have to be even friendlier with the people at the Detroit Sports Commission, because they're the ones that are running most of the local events.
You're correct.
We didn't get anyone at last year's draft, but we at least got the attention for the next big event. So we're working on that. But I have a question about your ticket sales program with the Titans. How did you go about setting that up? Because there are a lot of places that the Lions let us sell tickets, and then they got good, and now there's no more group sales inventory. There's no such thing as a distressed game anymore for the Lions.
For sure.
But even so, how did you set that up? And we're able to do that with smaller teams where they get a kickback, but I can't think of a better fundraiser. And like you said, $8,000, that pretty much covers your year, which sounds sad to bigger universities that might be listening. But
Oh
for
gosh,
us,
yeah,
I mean, that's the entire business school budget at some of our institutions. So
yeah, for sure.
how'd you get that going?
Yeah, it was just the ask, making the ask. So
Yeah.
I've had people come and talk to classes, and we were bouncing ideas off of each other, and we were doing everything under the sun. Good gosh, I did so many fundraisers to help pay for it. I grew up very low income, and many of us do, and I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a financial need or a barrier for students to be able to go. We lived in a very poor area whenever I was teaching at Bethel in Northwest Tennessee, a lot of low income. And I made the ask. I was like, hey, I am a diehard Tennessee fan. Like I prayed for a team as a little boy. Like I am not playing. I'm from the South. We pray and we do those things. We're in the Bible Belt, and I prayed for a team, and we got the Tennessee Titans, and I've been a diehard fan ever since. And it was really cool whenever we were talking one day, and she's like, "Hey, let me ask. There's never been a university partner with us before, but let me see." And she went and spoke to the VP, Miss Tina Tuggle, which you probably have seen her. She's started from answering the phones when the Titans were in Memphis and worked her way up to VP. She's fantastic. I believe she's the first African American VP in the NFL. Now, thankfully, they've been able to expand and there's presidents and everything else. So that's a really cool, really exciting. But she spearheaded it and we were able to do it. And the very first year, I think we sold like $7,600 maybe worth, and then we built upon that. This is my first year at Cumberland, so I didn't know how it would take. But since we're so close to the Nissan Stadium, I think that it was a little bit easier than I expected. But when we first started off, I thought we were a Super Bowl contender. I really did. The Titans, we were so good. I missed the glory days. I'm sorry, Tannehill, if I've ever said anything negative about you on a Sunday.
You can
I
enjoy
miss those
Mayo
days.
now, though.
AJ Brown, I'm sorry, like guys. But no, in all seriousness, they were contenders, but they were willing to work with us, and they were able to get it going because they knew they're invested in their future employees. So
No, it's great. And it feeds your other projects, right? So it
yes,
all goes
yeah,
hand in hand. And it doesn't
yes,
have to be a very formal class like mine. I know Brandon, you did yours through your senior capstone
Mhm.
projects. There's a lot of ways to weave ticket sales in, and we're all big fans because we know like that's a great way to enter the industry. And
yeah,
while it is competitive, I would say it's not the job that everyone dreams of applying for. So maybe it's slightly less competitive
yeah.
or a little bit more accessible. But no, we really appreciate you coming onto the podcast and kind of shedding a light on how those things work, because there are people out there. I mean, when I first started this job 4 years ago, I didn't have anyone. I'm the only full-time faculty here, just like you probably are at Cumberland. And
Yes.
there's no one to ask and say, hey, how do I? So I just
Yeah.
started networking and calling friends and texting people and saying, hey, and then things started happening just because of the ask.
Yep.
But there was no playbook,
No.
ironically,
Yep.
for how to teach sport management and how to create these opportunities. So no, I know this will help somebody. It's helped me and given me a few more ideas. And we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys, and I look forward to follow along to see what you guys do. And whenever you make it to the sales championship, let me know because I'm excited and I'm rooting for everyone.
Dr. Greer, thanks again for coming onto the podcast. We really appreciate it. And folks, stay tuned and make sure to ask us questions on the platform, and we'll be sure to answer those for you. Until next time, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.